So, again, I thought there was more energy and a sense of urgency for the Tigers, especially in the first half.
Yeah, no question. They got after it, and a number, what was it, 4 fumbles, I think, that Southern put on the ground, the causing turnovers, and played much more physical than they did against Florida State. And, again, some of that's just comfort, right, getting that first game under your belt.
Running the football. Again, we saw a little bit more of that. Again, I understand it was a Power 5 versus an FCS, but Armani Goodwin, a good night running the ball. Noah Kane early in the game. And how about Keishawn Booty getting involved in that running game with the big play on his one carry? But you were down there on the sidelines. Again, you can see when things are going well. You can see if there are creases along the offensive line, regardless of who you're playing and how the running backs attack those holes. Your assessment of the run game that we all know is going to be important starting this week.
You got to run the ball in the SEC. If you're going to win football games, you got to run, you got to stop run. It's a cliche, but we talk about it each and every year. Look, for LSU, as loaded as they are at wide receiver, a lot of teams are going to play what we call cover 2 man. They're going to have to give some extra help. That's man-to-man underneath with 2 safeties over the top. You don't want to play a whole lot of man-to-man strictly with Boutte and some of the outstanding receivers that LSU has. And Coach Kelly talked about last week in the press conference on our pregame interview recognition, that Jaden had to do a little bit better job of recognizing what the defense is playing. And when they're playing that 2-man and they're backing up and playing coverage, more coverage than normal, you have to be able to run the ball because you have equal numbers on the line of scrimmage. And I thought they did a better job of recognizing and being able to run the football when the numbers were equal.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me early on in that first quarter was, again, that recognition, but also the patience of Daniels. Again, when he got there, the pocket would get a little tight at times. He didn't immediately bail out and start to run. He would extend the play. He would move the pocket. And, again, he distributed the football around nicely to this receiving core. It was great to see. I'm sure by design, Booty, he was targeted early and often in the game. He had a quick night of work, obviously, but also Malik Neighbors in the first half, very involved in the passing game. And then we got to see some of those guys. We talk about how deep this receiver room is. It was on display Saturday night. Chris Hilton with 8 catches. We saw a lot from Brian Thomas. He was a popular target, especially in the second half. But again, it just goes to show you that's what these receivers can do for this offense.
Chris Hilton Jr. Chris Hilton Jr. Had been beat up a little bit last year, is getting a chance to get on the field and make some plays. We know he has tremendous speed, caught a slant, caught an out route. It was good to see 17 catch the ball.
You mentioned special teams. How about the roar of the crowd when Greg Clayton Jr. underneath that punt, able to not only bring it in, but get a few yards as well? You heard a just burst of applause.
I'm not sure I've heard of a fair catch get that sort of applause in Tiger Stadium before.
Again, LSU takes care of business, no surprise, 65-17. They now will open SEC play coming up this Saturday back at Tiger Stadium, kicking off a little earlier at 5 o'clock as the Pirate comes down from Starkville with Mississippi State, who had the big trip out to Tucson. Eventually pulled away late in that game, but it was a contentious game for most of that action, Mississippi State and Arizona. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll kind of preview the Bulldogs here in 2022, and then we'll lead you up to the top of the hour, and Coach Brian Kelly will begin his weekly press conference. Want to remind you that you need to download the ASAP app. Get all of your game day needs delivered right to your door. ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Gordy and I will be right back after this.
Albertsons is making shopping and saving easier than ever. Check out Albertsons For You in our mobile app, where you can shop for groceries and save weekly with digital coupons all in one place. With Albertsons For You, you can earn rewards points every time you shop and redeem them for free groceries. Brand new Albertsons For You members receive $5 off their next $25 purchase just for signing up. Download the Albertsons app or go to albertsons.com to sign up. Albertsons, fresh food, local flavors.
Support your LSU Tigers with Hancock Whitney, the official bank of LSU Athletics. From game day to the offseason, Hancock Whitney LSU credit and debit cards are a big win for any Tiger fan. Want to get your paws on these cards? Well, apply online or visit HancockWhitney.com/LSU. Hancock Whitney Bank, member FDIC. All accounts subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions may apply.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
In the SEC, we sweat the small stuff. The attention to tradition. The preparation for competition. The smallest things can have the biggest impact on this field and a whole host of other fields. To shine among the brightest stars, you have to sweat the small stuff. Because here, it just means more.
Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
Back here with you on a Monday, the Brian Kelly Press Conference. Coach will join us from the Lawton Room coming up at the top of the hour, 12 noon, as the Tigers get ready to take on Mississippi State, step into SEC play. Again, we'll be right back here at the friendly confines of Tiger Stadium. Friendly for Tiger fans, obviously, maybe not for the Bulldogs. This series, of course, LSU leads the series all time, 76-36 and 3 ties. In fact, here in Baton Rouge, 49 wins for the Tigers to 20 losses and 1 tie at legendary Tiger Stadium. We've seen Mississippi State now for 2 weeks, got by Memphis to open the season, traveled out to Tucson, took on Arizona on late one Saturday night, kicked off just after 10 o'clock. Again, we could maybe make some of the fact that they have to travel back to Starkville. Probably got home, what do you say, 6 a.m. maybe? 7 a.m. basically?
I remember that UCLA trip a year ago.
Yeah, boy, do I. So, again, we'll see. They'll be ready to go, no doubt about it, on Saturday. But one of the things about Mississippi State, Gordy, and we heard it SEC Media Days, and it was really those who follow the program and who follow the SEC talked about, okay, Mike Leach in this season may have the prototypical quarterback that he likes and what he had at obviously his success at Washington State and Texas Tech in Will Rogers. From what you've gathered, how does that scenario fit?
Absolutely. He's got 16 returning starters. Will Rogers is now in his 3rd year as a starting quarterback at Mississippi State. And more importantly, Mike Leach has evolved. And this is not the air raid we saw at Texas Tech and Washington State. It's more of a ball control offense. Rogers is completing 78.6% of his passes. They're going to throw the short, the intermediate routes, and he's trying the whole time of possession. 37 minutes to 23 minutes. Mississippi State was in favor of that time of possession at Arizona, an improved Arizona club last week. And I remember the game last year up in Starkville. LSU had 4 big, long touchdown plays to get to that 28-point, got out to that big lead there. And Mississippi State held the ball, came back in the 4th quarter, closed it down to a 28-25 game, and made a much closer game than it should have been. So this is a tough offense to defend, and now in year 3 of the Leach regime in Starkville, he's got exactly what he wants. These people know how to execute this offense.
Will Rogers on Saturday night, 39 of 49, 313 yards, 4 touchdowns, did throw 1 interception. That's going to happen in this offense with as many times as they put it in the air. We always examine Mike Leach's teams, and again, this goes back to Texas Tech, to Washington State, is how do they complement that air raid attack with the rushing attack? Anything different, better here in 2022?
They didn't run the ball very well last year. They've run the ball better thus far. It's been Memphis. It's been Arizona. Good teams, not great teams. They've got 2 running backs in Johnson and Marks. Went for 125 last week at Arizona. He wants to run the ball a little bit more. He had to throw the last couple of years, so he's trying to get a little bit more balance. But make no mistake about it, it's basketball and grass. It's just higher percentage passes, the no-huddle offense, and instead of going race car fast, he wants to milk that clock and take his time and make those audibles and check with me from the sideline and get him into Will Rogers.
One of the things about Mississippi State and going against Mike Leach is he's a master calling plays offensively to find the weaknesses you're giving up. I mean, it's the old saying, we'll take what you give us, and he maximizes that. Obviously, it is a lot of dink and dunk. It's a lot of passes into the flat, short stuff. They'll look for the long vertical pass, but they'll just go right down the field. We talked about the tackling improving for LSU. Two things about the defense this particular game. We've heard Coach Kelly and Coach House talk about having multiple looks, not to get too comfortable, not show the same thing every play, because, again, I think that's a dangerous road, as we all learned a couple of years ago against the Mike Leach offense. But tackling is huge because a 4-yard catch can turn into a big one very quickly with a missed tackle.
Absolute tackling, and then anytime you play Mike Leach, you want to give up field goals, not touchdowns. This offense, it gets really tight in the red zone, and that's one of the problems he's had at times throughout his career is red zone efficiency, turning that red zone into touchdowns. You want to exchange field goals, and on the other side, when you get the ball, you want to punch it in and make touchdowns.
So if you're LSU defensively, knowing what we've seen with our own eyes the last couple of seasons, and with the personnel, what we've seen through film so far through 2 games, what do you think Matt House offers up overall defensively to stop the Bulldogs?
Well, a couple things. You've got to get pressure with your front four, and that's why it was nice to see Little and Perkins and some of these young guys step up. Hopefully, Ojulari is going to be back for this game. You cannot blitz this Mississippi State Mike Leach offense. Remember, we tried to do that a couple years ago with Bo Pelini, and Mississippi State torched LSU. You've got to keep the ball in front of you. You've got to come up and group tackle and hopefully make plays, and hope Rogers is there and get a couple turnovers like LSU did a year ago.
One of the things, obviously, Mike Leach known for being aggressive offensively. He's going to keep coming at you. He's going to do what he does, and he does not vary. But I think what's interesting about what he's done in Starkville is when he brought Zach Arnett, defensive coordinator, all the offense gets the headlines, but Arnett by nature and philosophy is also kind of an attack-style defense.
Because a 4-2-5 came over from San Diego State and brought a kind of a West Coast sort of defense, new age defense out here, and a lot of people wondering if it would work, and he does bring a lot of pressure. This was the number 30th ranked defense in the country a year ago on the 7-6 Mississippi State team. Much better than they've been in the past, and a lot of people that have been around Leach long enough think this is the best defense he's had since being a head coach.
We talked about patience. We talked about recognition in the pocket for Jaden Daniels, QB1 for LSU. It will be a huge test coming up in that department on Saturday.
There's no question. There's no question. He's got to help this young offensive line, and they're still trying to find out who the starting 5 is going to be by keeping them out of bad situations. It took him a half against Florida State, did a much better job in the second half, but Arnett's going to bring a lot of different looks.
We were having a conversation this morning in the office about defensively LSU. What do we know about the cornerbacks and safeties against the passing game? Have we gotten enough sample size in the first 2 games? Because goodness knows, expect 49, 50, 55 passes going up in the air on Saturday.
No, absolutely. And Coach Leach is going to go back to that Florida State game, and he's going to be watching those cornerbacks and defensive backs to see where their eyes are. Florida State, of course, had the trick play and the big touchdown. Mike Leach is always going to have a couple of those, but absolutely, you're going to have to play consistent out there. You're going to have to play your coverage, and he's going to test you. You've got to stay within the scheme, and they're going to have to play a lot of zone. You don't get to play a whole lot of man-to-man against Mississippi State and Mike Leach.
It's interesting. A lot of fans leading up to the start of the season, you open neutral site against Florida State. That was going to be a measuring stick game, if you will. Fair or unfair, that's the way it was positioned. Now you've got a win where you took care of business as you were supposed to. You looked good, very good at times, executing on both sides of the ball. Now you come into this one. How big a measuring stick? Am I overplaying how big this game is for LSU on Saturday night?
No, absolutely. Absolutely not. This is an SEC game, again, with a team that's on the rise. I know he's had a 500 record in his first 2 years as a head coach, but, again, he returned 16 people. Huge measuring stick to see where they are, which I think is a team that's going to be bowl-bound and be in the top 1/3 of the SEC.
Again, it'll be a matchup on Saturday night, Tiger Stadium. Hope to have another great atmosphere at the stadium. Kickoff at 5 o'clock. Gordy, we'll see you there. And right now we'll head to the Lawton Room for head coach Brian Kelly.
There's my $10. So let's get that out of the way right away. I'll take a money order from the Advocate. I don't take a check, because it might bounce. Oh, yours, it's personal. I thought it was a business expense. All right, good afternoon. Just to recap the past weekend. Certainly, great to get back home in Tiger Stadium for me for the first time and for our team. Obviously, getting off to a fast start was absolutely crucial, given the way that we kind of were sluggish. And I love the way our guys responded on the first play. Getting the ball loose on special teams, and then continuing with one of the best, if not the best, first quarter outputs in Tiger Stadium. Daniels has been really efficient. I think he's led scoring drives in 8 consecutive possessions. Defensively, played really well through 3 quarters. Thought maybe, our attention to detail lapsed a little bit late. And then special teams was outstanding with a block punt. Certainly did the things necessary in that area that we needed to tighten up as well. So a good victory, but now, we get into SEC competition and everything is heightened. All of the things that I just mentioned still have to occur, but our preparation has to be even better, more detailed. Playing Mississippi State, I have such great respect for Coach Leach, and obviously it starts with the offense. It is a precision offense. It is extremely well coached, and there is a level of I would say patience and persistence that you need on defense, because if you're trying to disrupt it in one fashion, there are answers that they have. And the answers are tried and true and tested. So, look, this is going to come down to our guys' attention to detail. They're going to have to tackle very, very well. This really puts the tenets of really good defensive football on display. You've got to be able to not only tackle, but be in really good positional awareness all day. Because again, this is a scheme that, in some instances, and I'm not here to compare it, across the board, but this is like triple option, right? The precision of the scheme, the way it is set up. If you are not taking care of your assignment and doing your job, you're going to get exposed. And they've had 2 quality wins against quality opponents. And, again, it's SEC competition against a outstanding offensive scheme. And defensively, this is a veteran defense. They've got a lot of juniors and seniors playing a 3-3-5 defense. They're salty. I mean, they've got some really good players. They play hard. They're well coached, well coordinated. They've got answers as well. Again, in terms of superlatives, just going back to the offense, Will Rogers, obviously leads the SEC in passing yards, but it's a high percentage offense, and he can make all the throws. I think from a defensive standpoint, the guy that stands out is Tyrus Wheat. Obviously from right here in Louisiana, he's all over the field. He's from Amite, and I will say this: you're going to see him in a number of different positions. Whether he's at linebacker, he can play a stand-up. He's going to be moved around, and obviously he's coming back home, and he is he's a guy that can wreck your day if you don't know where he is. So, great challenge for our football team. One where we have to step up our play. It's exciting now that we get into SEC competition in terms of now we have to challenge ourselves in our preparation and, get ready for a really quality opponent. So with that, we'll open up to questions.
Coach, Josh Sibley, One Team, One Pod. How much does it mean for the offense getting John Emery back this week, not only for the rushing game, but also for the passing game and helping out Jaden with the pass blocking?
Yeah, we're excited about getting John back, certainly, and I'm excited for him. It's been a long run for John in terms of getting a chance to, get out and play for LSU. He's worked hard to get back into this position. And now he gets an opportunity. Now let's be careful. Now he's been off for a while, to put a lot of expectations on him in the first game, we certainly can't do that. We've got other backs that have done really well, but he will be part of the mix. And make no mistake about it, we've seen his capabilities in camp. We've kept him active within our rotation, so he's ready to play, and we did that with. Obviously our mind eyes toward the SEC competition coming up, so we're excited to get him back.
Hey, Coach, when you're going up against their offense, how much does conditioning and substitutions play a role when they could throw it 50, 60 times?
Yeah, certainly that's part of it. The tempo will be, part of what we have to consider. But you're in a situation where you're in nickel and dime a lot as well. So, and it is a hurry-up offense, but it's not something that we can't situational substitute out. And again, I think we're kind of used to it a little bit in terms of these guys are in pretty good shape. So we feel confident there. This is really going to be about getting the right players on the field. And we may look a little bit different from that perspective in terms of, getting guys that can play in space.
Brody Miller with The Athletic. First, just want to check, is B.J. Ojulari going to be available this week?
We expect him to be available, based upon my conversations with our doctors yesterday.
Thank you. And then, you've talked about Jaden Daniels kind of working on evaluating fronts, things like that. What challenge does the 3-3-5 kind of possibly present for him?
Yeah, it's really about, how and again, I'm just using words here, so don't take it too literal, but how the birds line up, right? I mean, it's a 3-3-5 defense, but they can move people around. So it's recognition of where those overloads come from and where those pressures, how you slide the front, how do we recognize, who are the five to block in the run game. And the 3-3-5 presents some of those problems. And, we'll have to do a great job of making it a little bit simpler. We think that a tight end helps in this situation where you can pick up an extra blocker in those situations to clean some things up. But I've gone against the 3-3-5 on many occasions, and it does present some unique challenges. It's very good against, a spread offense. Sometimes you look to do some other things against it as well.
Coach, two questions about the quarterbacks. What did Jaden Daniels do so well after looking at the tape? Moving the offense, command, whatever. And then just with Garrett Nussmeier, what are your thoughts and wants moving forward with him?
Well, I think you start with efficiency with Daniels. His ability to keep 8 drives alive consecutively and turn them into touchdowns, I think that's a great place to start. So, I think, there's still growth there, and he would tell you that if he was standing here. There's still growth and recognition. But he's so coachable. I think I mentioned this the last time we talked about him, is his demeanor when he comes to the sideline, extremely coachable, taking in information, talking to the box, talking to me on the sideline, where you can get him information and you can pick that up and move on to the next series. So I like that about him. Look, here's a guy with 3 years of starting experience, and you can sense and feel that when he comes to the sideline, that you can have that kind of dialogue. Look, I think we've all seen his ability to throw it and run, and he was confronted with opportunities on Saturday where he could have taken off, but for example, the touchdown to Besh, right, where he gets to the line of scrimmage and finds an open receiver and lets the ball go. If we can continue to see that, he becomes very difficult to contain. I'm sorry, yes. So, look, you never want to have a moment where you turn the ball over. And obviously we had a conversation with that. He's got to take care of the football, and he knows that. I mean, that's not anything that's something that he feels good about. But he did some really good things, and we have to build off of that. And I think he is somebody that when you're in that number 2 position, I'm not here to make excuses for him. You press a little bit, right? You want to, you have another quarterback who's led 8 consecutive touchdown drives. You're trying to press. You want to get on the field, and he doesn't need to do that. We have great confidence in him. He just needs to let the game come to him.
Right in the middle, Matt Moscona, ESPN Baton Rouge. You mentioned great respect for Mike Leach. As best I can tell, I don't think you have ever coached against him as a head coach.
I have not.
Do you have a personal relationship there at all? One, and then
I've known him for quite some time. Obviously, the tree that he's in, have many, many acquaintances. I know him since the days that I was at Grand Valley State and he was at Iowa Wesleyan. We shared a lot of common acquaintances in the business itself. So we've gotten a chance to know quite a bit about the offensive structures. And look, there's a lot of concepts that he's run that I was running about 25 years ago as well. So we have obviously run into each other many times along our careers.
If I could ask one follow-up also. This is kind of your first time through the league. Yeah. So what's it like for you trying to prep for maybe coaches and players and philosophies that you're learning for the first time?
The previous job I had, it was an independent schedule. So, it was somebody new each week in a sense, right? We had non-conference games every week. So it just feels normal, like, all right, this is a new opponent, but I was so used to having new opponents on the schedule. So it doesn't feel that much different for me in terms of the preparation. We have advanced scouting. Our advanced scouting does a really good job of coming up with, their personnel and their tendencies. And it's just a matter of, how we're going to attack, offensively and defensively. But it doesn't feel foreign to me from that perspective.
Coach Ed Daniels from New Orleans. As you try to build a program here, if you're able to win a game like this against a really good team on Saturday, does it send the confidence and believability meter up? Does that kind of accelerate the process if you're able to get something like that done on Saturday?
Every game that they play, our guys, is going to be an opportunity for growth. And you want that growth to happen through success, because success obviously breeds confidence, and confidence then is an accelerator in what you're doing, right? Everybody can move forward. Everybody tends to question themselves if the outcomes aren't right. So yes to your question, but we're not going into the game looking at it from that perspective. Really, I'm going into this game with the challenge of how we prepare differently this week we have to have a better week of preparation than we did last week, because the competition is keener and better. We have to get our guys to elevate that preparation level. That's what I'll be looking for. And if we get that, we'll play much better, and the outcome will probably be where we need it to be.
Brian, right here. Have you played at any of your other stops against an offense like this, so predicated on throwing on almost every down, and where they spread the field and throw to backs and throw to everybody?
Yes, I've had offensives that are quite similar. I would say Syracuse, is very similar and runs almost the same offensive structure. And Dino Babers is the head coach, who was part of that tree and have had to defend it, on a couple occasions. It's a difficult system. And look, this requires your offense to be really good as well. Your offense and defense have to be linked together in games like this. Your offense can't be just chucking it downfield and 3 and out. You have to maximize your possessions. You've got to be able to make sure that you're not giving them extra possessions. So the linkage between your offense and defense is absolutely paramount when you're playing teams like this.
Hey, Brian, Will Snyder from The Advocate. You talked recently about wanting, really focusing on success rate in the run game. Is that kind of where you want it, or what sort of things do y'all need to do to get to the place where you want to be sort of checking off the right things in terms of success rate in the run game?
Yeah, we still are focused much more on success rate than anything else. And the picture is not really clear yet in terms of where we are. We need SEC competition to really get into what our success rate is in terms of the competition. So I think that's TBD for us right now, but our focus will be on success rate, third down percentages, and picking up them, as well as yards per carry per attempt. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I think it's probably too early to make those decisions. Getting Emory back, a back of his caliber, I think helps in that assessment as well. So I want to answer your question, but I think it's a little early for us to really feel like where are we and how far do we need to go.
You spoke at length about this after the game with Charles Turner starting at center, and then you had moved Miles Frazier over to right tackle. Is that the same lineup you're going to come out with this week on the offensive line, and is it early enough in the season that you feel comfortable to just kind of change things up a little bit?
We were pleased with that starting five. I think you can expect to see that moving forward. I think there's some guys that I think distinguished themselves. The true freshman, Emory Jones, played well. I think you'll see more of him in the rotation. But I feel pretty confident to tell you here today that the way it graded out was what we were hoping for, and there's still going to be a need to rotate guys in. Cam Wire's still going to have to play for us. Tremont Short's still going to have to play for us. There's still going to have to be rotations within this group. It's not 5 for the whole game. But I just think you add Emory now. He did some really good things on Saturday.
Hey, Coach. Glenn West with Go247. A little bit of a two-parter for you. Just do you guys expect to have Sevyn Banks available this weekend? And then also, just this is a big test for the cornerback and secondary group as a whole. Just what do you hope to see from that group this weekend?
Yeah, good question on Sevyn. Sevyn is close to being ready. We wanted to make sure that, he wanted to play in the opener, but our medical team wanted to make sure that he was 100%. He was probably 90%, and there was really no need. We feel like we're in pretty good shape. This is a game where, all hands on deck at that position. So the expectation is right now that he's going to be dressed out, and we're going to know here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, how that eventually puts him in the rotation. So you're right on. He's at the cusp of playing, and we'll see how we practice this week.
Hey, Coach, when you face a team like Mississippi State and they have so many curveballs, does that sort of make you have to sort of adjust the way you practice this week? Are there any sort of adjustments made on that end, or is it just try to practice more normally and make the adjustments just more schematically instead of actual game day practice? Yeah,
it's a good question. I think perceptually that people think that there's a lot of curveballs, but this is dive, QB keep, or pitch. There's maybe 4, 5, 6 concepts that are run so well and so efficiently that if you get too cute on defense, that's where you get exposed. Or you try to do one thing to take it away. If you play too much man, if you play too much 3-man rush, if you try to be one-dimensional defensively, that's where you get in trouble. So this is really about trying to change up your looks, try to make it so they don't see the same thing every time. But they're going to run what they run, and they just run it better than you can defend it in 3 days of preparation. And again, I go back to that. I know you're going to get sick of the triple option analogy, but it's so true in that this is the air raid concept. They run it better than you can defend it in 3 days. So you better tackle. You better have a really good plan on some of the things that they really like to do, or you're going to get exposed.
What is your assessment of how the coaches and players communicated with each other after their first game to make the corrections and the adjustments and the personnel changes that went into this second game plan? Where are you seeing that?
That's a really good question. A game like Southern where it's 51-0 at half, those are nightmares for me because, you're down to, you're playing as many guys as possible and you're always looking out on the field doing this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, we got 11 because you've got new guys going in and out of the game. We did not have any substitution errors, and I was really happy with the discipline that our guys showed. And actually in Florida State, we had a couple of guys tap out of special teams without communicating, which is totally unacceptable. So, we had addressed that in week 1, and it carried over. So communication is much better. We got to clean up a couple of things on the sideline in terms of guys getting down and sitting down. They were watching the game a little bit too much. But I think we're getting better to where I want to be a little bit more disciplined on the sideline. But it was really good for where we were in that game.
Coach in the middle. Gregory Clayton got a shot at punt returner.
Yep.
Would you maybe just kind of share a little bit of his story and how he came here, the relationship there, and is that the plan moving forward with him returning punts?
Well, obviously, Frank Wilson had a lot to do with that. It was a UTSA transfer, from Louisiana, obviously. And here's a young man that, obviously we had a sense that he's a guy that could really come in here and have a chance to earn a scholarship. And he finds himself in week 2 returning punts. He's a pretty good receiver as well. So we knew we had a really good player coming in, but he's entering into a field of wide receivers where there's great depth. We saw that, right, the other night. But again, I think another young man from the state of Louisiana that, we've seen a lot of this. We're going to play against one. There's so many really good players in this state. I'm just glad we were aware of him as a transfer and that he's able to help our program.
Hey, Coach. Chase Luzerne from Gridiron Football. I know Ali Gay and B. Joe Jawari were absent in last week's game, but it allows you an opportunity to see Savion Jones, Desmond Little, and even put Harold Perkins a lot in that role. What is your evaluation on how those guys played?
Savion was what he's been. I think I talked about this after the game, consistent. He is really, from a job assignment, as good as we have, doing his job, play in and play out. Des hadn't played a lot, so it was good to get him out there. There's things that he's got to clean up in his game, but he's active, he's athletic, and gives us that piece. And look, you're looking to develop guys that haven't played a lot of football. He hasn't played a lot of football, so it was good to get him out there. And Harold Perkins, was playing in our nickel package, and quite frankly, didn't have much time to get ready for that role. But he's such a great kid, accepted it, and used his athleticism to really help us when we were pinched for personnel at that position.
Down here to the left, Brian Holland with NBC 33 and Fox 44. Excuse me. If you found something with tempo at the end of Florida State, and then Mississippi State is obviously challenging because they're making you play complementary football in the second half. One, is that just a second half call as far as slowing things down? And two, from experience, how do you kind of balance that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think tactically you have to look at, efficiency over anything else. So if we're efficient on offense, we're fine playing with tempo. If we're not, it's really immaterial, because if you're not efficient in what you do, you're giving them easy possession. So we have to look at our efficiency on offense, and I think it's not just tempo; it's everything that we do. And you'll see a blend again. You're not just going to see a hurry-up offense go out there. You're going to see tempo. You'll see us move the tight end around, change formations, do some things like that. But it'll be a blend with an eye towards being efficient offensively. And when I say efficient, obviously holding on the football and cashing those in. We talked about the 8 drives that Daniels has had, his 8 consecutive drives. If we can get near that, we'll be in pretty good shape.
Mike Baskerville said after the game he was originally going to have to miss the first 2 games, and that he got cleared like the Thursday before Florida State. How did that affect the way y'all were preparing for the season? And then now that you're past that 2-game mark, what's his role going to kind of look like moving forward?
Well, we appealed that suspension, and as you know, he was cleared to play. So, we got him actively involved right away. And he was a guy also that, like John, we kept with us, hoping that we would get good news and that we would be able to play him. So we kept him active with us, and he's got a unique skill set. He is really good in pass coverage. He's really smart. That doesn't mean he can't stop the run. He's not built to be a big-time plugger, but he'll stick his nose in there. He's not afraid. We saw that. His block punt was like teach tape. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, he bent, put the low hand out, took the ball off the foot of the punter. Some younger players would have run into the punter in that situation. So he's a smart, savvy football player and makes us better when he's on the field.
Hey, Brian. Sheldon Mickles, the Advocate. I know Saturday night was a small sample size, but how has the assessment of your secondary gone into this big challenge Saturday night?
I think the corners have held up pretty well. Their play has been consistent. It's been on body. They've played the ball well in the air. I thought our tackling got better. Greg Brooks playing back at the safety position has enhanced our communication to the level that we felt really good about it. Putting Ward down, in a natural nickel position fits his game as well. So I just think the pieces were moved in the right place after that evaluation of Florida State and where we felt like we needed to get better. So communication on the back end was much better. The corner play continues to be solid, but they'll be challenged at a higher level certainly this Saturday. Great, thank you. $10 is here. We're up to $60.
Coach Brian Kelly with this week's press conference as the Tigers get ready to take on Mississippi State. Saturday evening, kickoff 5 o'clock. Whoop, he's still going.
I trust everybody in this room.
Sorry about that. Jumped in front of the coach. He was just, making sure that everybody paid their tab. Coach was having a little fun with the media. Again, Mississippi State, LSU coming up. 5 o'clock is the kickoff. We'll have things getting started around 3 o'clock with LSU game day. We'll take our final break. When we come back, we will wrap it up on this Monday, the Brian Kelly press conference, delivered by ASAP.
Together, we are partners, setting a new standard for health. Together, we prove that no matter how battle-tested we are, our spirit remains undefeated. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are creating transformational change and impacting Louisiana with a new standard for healthcare, research, and education. Together, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are champions for Louisiana. Together, we roar. Learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU.
Hello, how can I help you?
I'm looking for your new Fast Play games, but really, how fast are they?
How fast do you say? Faster than a... Even faster than...
Whoa! Hey, that's fast.
Introducing new Fast Play games from the lottery. Get in between for $1. Rev up with $2 Super 7s. Bet on Black Cherry Bingo. Get the winning score with $5 Saints. And finally, it's a party with $10 Cash Extravaganza. Win up to $50,000. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
For today's STEM tip. Okay, recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
In the SEC, we sweat the small stuff. The attention to tradition. The preparation for competition. The smallest things can have the biggest impact on this field and a whole host of other fields. To shine among the brightest stars, you have to sweat the small stuff. because here it just means more.
This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP.
Coach Brian Kelly, interesting talk today. Happy with his team's performance on Saturday, but mentioned several times, got to step it up as SEC play begins this Saturday, taking on Mississippi State. Later this week, get a chance to hear from Coach again. The Brian Kelly Show Thursday evening from TJ Ribbs will start at 7.